Well, hello there, everybody. Yes, it says that I be live, not in. A little bit early, but that's okay. Got lots of material to cover. So, hey, man, I'm just going to sit there. Hey, Kent Cook, how you doing? Ryder Lee, what you doing, my friend? We got to get back together, get you on. Susan, good to see you. And London, man, how's it going? So, welcome, everybody. It's Friday. And this is honor to the goddess, I believe it is Fragan. Isby, what's happening? Good to see you. So she's associated with Venus. Hey, Venus. Yeah. The goddess of love. Ah, the exotic type, the romantic type, the intense type, all types. So, Bonnie, good to see you. Lost in Space. Go. Good to see you as well. So, favor be upon us all. Nothing missing, nothing broken. We are indeed prospering. And hey, Bosto, baby, and happy birthday or anniversary if you got one. So, what's happening? Good to see everyone. Big Al, how are you doing? Powerful. Violet Truth. Love that. Love it. Love it. Carol, what's going? Carolyn, good to see you as well. Wow, lots of people just filing in. I need to put Doug, and I just was lifting weights this morning and aggravated my sciatica. Sciatica, yeah. Hurts. That's what I'm talking about. Hurts. It's like, ow. You do the weight thing, and that's my way of doing it. To keep the muscle at, you get it. But wow, yeah. Like son of a bee. Whoa. So anyway, Bernadette, good to see you. Eye of the Maelstrom. So I'll put in is it Doug? I believe that's right. Put that information in there and we'll see if we can help him out. I have the Maelstrom. What's happening? Good to see you as well, Jargo. So I don't know if y'all use incense, but so I've been using this a while, and I got to tell you what. This one particularly, Dragon's Fire. Wow, this is some good stuff. So many of you who are baby boomers that are, products of the late 60s and early 70s, y'all know who I'm talking about. So remember when you used to walk into the head shops, the incense that they had, it was kind of, in many cases, it was almost like Batuya oil. But there was one place in particular where I used to buy my clothes. It was a really cool place. It's the exact same smell. And when I first burnt the first stick of this, I was like, wow. I mean, it just, boom, takes you right back there. I can actually remember the pair of jeans I was looking at. Isn't that odd how you can and I can see the store, Yeah. Well, good times. That's all I got to say. There it is. Thank you, Al. So if you have the ability to want to bless somebody, just help them out. Doug's family is in need. So, how many of you followed me on the Steiger perspective? Y'all remember that? And Robert, and by the way, Robert, the great conversation. If you haven't checked that video out from yesterday, you really should. That was a really, it's like walking into, back in Denver, they had Mike Shanahan, who was the head coach for Denver, had a restaurant. And if you're ever there, it's in the tech center, check it out. Anyway, never had a bad meal in there. Of course, the meals are rather pricey, but my point is, it was always rich. It was always good. It fed you. And yesterday we fed our minds and souls with good information. Thoroughly enjoyed it. So People saying, Joyce Marie says, yeah. Hey, Ginger, good to see you, my dear. Someone else said to hold that up again. Okay, there it is. They have a whole box of different, and so yeah, that was some good stuff. So in fact, Brian and I did a couple of shows, and when the website was up, it has since been bought by Lockheed Martin, I believe, and it's been completely scrubbed. But back in the day, in Deagle.com, you would look at the GDP of countries, and you could look at a forward projection of what that GDP would be. And it was up there for at least I know for 2 or 3 years. It's not up there anymore. But the odd thing was the United States. And when you compared it to other countries where they are right now, it had, like with China and other countries of that nature, you could see the growth and the decline curve, but it was never out of balance, so to speak. So with the United States, it was out of balance. It was really out of balance because, they were projecting a death rate in the United States of some 200 million. And it showed the correlation of this loss of population to the gross domestic product. It went into subcategories, but like I said, it ain't there anymore. So I got the office closed off, and yeah, that incense is like, hello. Note to self. So are we in for something? I don't know. But definitely something's up. And so today, I thought it was interesting because you've got the mainstream media that works with, the government, and, they don't like stories that have a negative impact or possible effect. And so when they get something that it's like, oh crap, we shouldn't have let that out, they'll try to come back and fact check it. The problem is today, the fact checkers need to be fact checked. It's just a fact. So, Baphomet. Yeah, we're going to talk a little bit about that. I was going through the library, and we were talking about the giants, and there is just some really great books. This is one that really I was talking about that documents, and then you can see the fallen angels in the Ohio Valley. And L.A. Mazzilli, I have to say, you can say what you want, but the guy put out some good information, good research information. These are some, if you want to add this and learn on the Nephilim, the bones. Here's the second edition. Oh, this is volume 1. All over the world, the bones, them bones. That's what we be talking about. Them bones, they be there. So, getting back to Baphomet. This is a great book. It's called The Book of Baphomet. I don't have it on digital. If someone does, let me know. You can actually, I want to show you in some of this. As you can see, Baphomet is a bafflement. Ashtaroth is in here in this book. It's actually, she is called the Queen of Hell. We know that doesn't exist, and I'm just trying to pull up something here for you. So this is Baphomet. This is his statement. He says, "Give me the sign of the open eye, octarian rays shine, double-coiled, star-formed snake, time-traveling. Fourfold alphabet of ecstasy, you are the tree and the snake. We are the children of the trees, embedded actions. You raise us towards the sun and the moon, greatest of all gods, unfolding, opening, pouring forth upon the world with torrents of fire. Well, there you go. Sail, and that's C-E-L-L, of undifferential possibility. Wow. Such beauty, all full to behold. All devour, all begetters, winged angel of life. Male and female conjoined. I see myself, oh my God. In your serpentine dance, I see you, oh my God. Ancient, new, deep space, you rest. Your language speaks from stars and stone, loving to the very heart of the earth. You make a road for the spirit to pass over, waving the wand, drumming pulse of creation and obliteration, breathing easily, wide awake to the world begetter. All paths lead to your hearth, touching hands, root of all things fresh as the day it was born, bringer of death and decay, sleep and birth, love growing perfection. Branches made of air point to the sky, all-pervading desire opening as love, transformer and transgressor doing magic, axes of the sky and land and the sea and every blade of grass, every day's eye, weaver of magic, folded legs, forked lightning that quickens all matter, creating laughter anew. So that's Baphomet. It's interesting in this particular book, it goes, and Baphomet has quite the history here. I want to pull up so I can show you. The interesting thing was, for instance, this is in Trafalgar Square. You see, Baphomet has been here as long as the story has been around, and you can figure that one out for yourself. But it gives the fact that, you know, Baphomet, and yes, it is in the White House. When you have a goat's head, you know, I don't care what your stupidity is, and ignorance is a self-inflicted disease, easily cured by knowledge, is the fact that now this is the Templars. As he gets this out. So there is Baphomet. It's very interesting, this creature, this symbol. You learn about it. You learn that this is a powerful being, is basically the thing I can. And those, I guess, who follow Baphomet, they are rewarded quite handily. This is really just a phenomenal book. I wish I could get it in digital format, because we could spend some time dealing with the esoteric drawings, and you got to draws you back to the whole time when they were much more well versed about Baphomet. So, hey, listen, you know, to each his own. But no matter how you look at it, within the statue, the image of this Baphomet, male and female conjoined, you have the Cardicus. You know, it's weird. You know, Cardicus is there to heal you. And that story was hijacked by the writers of, you know, Moses. So let me get this right. Moses, he is instructed by Yahweh to get a staff. You put the wings on top, and then the two brazen serpents. All who looked upon it were immediately healed. And what was it needed? Excuse me, folks. I have got to stop this incense or I'm going to asphyxiate myself. I'll be right back. All right, so I'm back. Jeez, answer was over here. It's like, man, what the heck is going on? Yeah. Anyway, so I try to bring all points of view, and the Knights Templar. Yeah, what did they know? I mean, weren't they the hand of God that went to the Middle East? Wasn't that their story, that they went there to save the relics of Christianity and the books and, fight the war, with the Muslims? I mean, yeah, crazy stuff. The Crusades. Well, so what are these cats? They were very wealthy, and y'all know the story. Many of you know it better than I do. But what was it that they found out where they use Baphomet as their shield? I mean, when you put an image on a shield, many people think it was the blood cross, but apparently in their meetings, yeah, I had a friend who raised goats, cute things, particularly when they're babies. I mean, have you ever seen a baby goat? I mean, it's absolutely the cutest thing of all. I mean, but anyway, let's see. Ginger, they said they saw God as a flame or light. They got accused of idolatry. Yes. Off with their heads. And thus the story goes, and it was a good one. Still is. So as I'm looking at this, we're in strange times. I continue to contend, much as the conversation that we had with Robert yesterday. And again, make sure to go over there and subscribe to his channel. I see that he had a pretty good uptick, but got to get him over 1,000 subscribers, so we can do that. But this thing we call history is an illusion. It's a mirage. My wife and I were talking about it last night. And when you start putting in the pieces, you're going, some ain't right. I mean, the whole thing of the giants, they were here. They ruled this planet for well over 100,000 years. I mean, but that's been removed from our history. Apparently, our memory as well. Apparently, it was so traumatic for our species, and I can dig it. I mean, if you and I woke up each morning and as you're going out to do your day, you stand a 1 in 3 chance of being food for something that's much larger than you. Y'all remember back in the, I think it was the late 60s or the 70s, the Land of the Giants? It was about a group of astronauts that went to an alternative Earth, where now I understand what they were trying to say. The giants were the Nephilim. They were us. Remember, they looked like us. They had the same culture as we did. And yet you think about where these astronauts, they came from Earth, but landed in this place, the Land of the Giants. And the Land of the Giants have the same culture. They have the same trappings, the whole bit. Now I get it. It's like, oh yeah, that's the Nephilim and the Raphaim. Writer says, anyone watched the Graham Hancock Netflix show? I have not. I'm going to have to check that out. Thought we were already food, Bonnie says. Hey, Mary Wins, how you doing, dear? Yeah, I mean, so that would be pretty traumatic. It's like, oh, crap, got 8 today, did you see John? No, he was actually, the entree. So that would be pretty traumatic for our species. The book of Og, he said there that was really what the humans were primarily for, was for feeding. Yeah, I could see how that could psychologically scar a species. I mean, who would want to remember that? I don't know if we could remain sane. I mean, that would just absolutely drive a person insane, knowing that there were bipedals that were, 100 feet tall. Depends if you believe in the Book of Enoch. Book of Enoch says that the original Nephilim grew to over 4,500 feet. That's almost a mile. Wow. So, yeah, I could see that. Permanently scarring us, like, no, we ain't going to remember this. It never happened. Don't ever speak of it. And we wiped it from our memory. It's very interesting. Hard to truth, Hall. That's it. Food for the giants. Yeah. What was the one that they did? Was it the Outer Limits or the Twilight Zone, the Zone, where the aliens came down and, made this treaty and, gave humankind, this technology. And in exchange, they wanted a group of emissaries. And so it was a big deal if you got chosen. And then they gave us the book, right? And took off in the spaceship with humans in there. And they found out when they actually translated that it was a cookbook. Y'all remember that? It was us they were cooking. Yeah. So I'm just reading some of the comments. All right. Got some stuff I want to cover. Thought y'all might, for those into the occult and practicing magic and learning new stuff, this is an interesting little jewel. It's called the Invocation of the Four Gates. I'll let you figure out your own language, how to pronounce that. I have enough respect that says, nope, I ain't going there. It looks Greek to me. But anyway, so the opening of the 7 gates, get this. So the magician draws a circle around himself on the ground and stands in the center. On the ground or on the altar is a wand, a knife, and a chalice. The magician begins by turning to the east and points his wand in this direction. The ritual will proceed clockwise to symbolically follow the journey of the sun towards the night in the north. In my old house, I actually had it out in the garage. I had this very elaborate circle, and fortunately I got pictures and I'll probably duplicate it here. But anyway, so to the west you say, I open the gate of dawn in the east, and I conjure the element of air in the name of Ammon. To the south gate, I open the gate of noon in the south and conjure the element of fire in the name of Goap. To the west gate, I open the gate of evening and conjure the element of water in the name of Corson. To the north gate, I open the gate at night. I conjure the element of earth in the name of Zimame. To the underground gate, I open the gate of the underworld in the name of the letter Mem and conjure the element of the primeval water. Its salt and its black color is the name of Lilith. To the sky gate, I open the gate of the heaven in the name of the letter Shin, and I conjure the element of the primeval fire, its sulfur and its red color in the name of Lucifer and Samael. On the solar plexus gate, I open the gate of the astral world in the name of the letter Aleph. I conjure the element of the primeval air, its mercury and its white color in the name of Shiva and Sorel. Says, then the magician closes his eyes and awaits the arrival of the forces. Thereafter, the chalice is lifted, filled with wine or a magical brew, and the forces are greeted in order they were called. The magician holds the chalice in each direction and declares, I greet you, demon name, and offer you a toast. If the magician is doing the Quelflic invocation, now is the time to read it. The ceremony is ended with the farewell to the forces and a closing of the gates by pointing the dagger in the 7 directions, but in the opposite order, starting upwards and ending with east. Before each direction, the magician declares, go in peace in the demon's name and return to the place from which you came and appear again whenever I call upon you. And then it has the invocation of Neamah. Neamah is the daughter of the heart of darkness, comes from the womb of the night, coming in your flaming robes and open our eyes to what is hidden. Open your night and bring forth the shadow that lurks in the unknown. May your black fires flow from the border, and may we taste your power and beauty. The black fire, that's a new one. So just thought you might like to check that out. Maybe it's not your cup of tea. I can dig that. But I like to throw some of this stuff in for those practicing witches and magicians and wizards, etc., etc., etc. Robert V says, how you doing, buddy? Rashima Jones says, hello, how you doing, Yosley? Good to see you. We should have more stories about Middle Earth, so enjoy them. Hey, I enjoy tokens. The Hobbit series, Lord of the Rings. Do believe that time existed. If we're missing chunks of history already, which we are, who knows what happened? Okay, thank you, Mary. When Mary says, hit the like button. Hit the like button. You know you like it. You know you want to do it. So do it with joy, do it with vigor, and do it with enthusiasm. Okay, let's continue on. Got some good ones here. So we're dealing with which God is yours. And I wanted to throw a couple of little books. This is actually from the book, Imagine That There Is No Satan, No Lucifer, because there isn't. We've created them, but we know for sure Lucifer is merely the imagination of Jerome, 475, thereabouts. So I like this one. And this was written from the Christian perspective, arguing that, hey, we've gotten ourselves all tripped up in this powerful being. And if this powerful being exists, then it's God, according to Yahweh. Says there's only one God, as you have seen testified throughout this book several times already. However, you might ask, how can you state that if there is a Satan rather than there is another God? Some will opine that because they believe there is a Satan does not mean that they have a two-God belief system. Well, if you give all the credit to evil, to Satan, Lucifer, the devils, his demons, the fallen ones, then yes, you are not monotheistic in your belief. You are, in fact, a polytheist. Because you are, by your own words and admission, saying that there are two gods. What did Satan tell Daniel, the detective in the prophecy? Hell is not big enough for another god. There's only one, right? That says the facts, though, are contrary to their thinking, and simply put, if one ascribes any supernatural power to anything, be it in an imagined character or a wood carving on a mantle, they are proclaiming that there is at least one other God. To address this question, we must explore the scriptures. And again, as I told you, this is from a Christian point of view, that to see if Yahweh calls lesser gods, small g, gods, capital G. And if Yahweh charges that those who claim their power is real are guilty of idolatry. These typically become the demons of religions such as Christianity. This transfer of false gods of nations to demons of Satan. This thinking is very dangerous ideology, and one which has been evolving into multiple streams of mystical interpretation. So his position is that you should remain ignorant, but since you're already in it now, well, you got to be thinking about. And of course, again, so mystical interpretation, and the connotation here is mystical is bad. No, no, no. Don't go in that direction. Well, so as he goes on and makes the argument, and these are, like I said, these are excerpts, these are chapters from the book. He brings out the indictment. It says the perception of many over the history of Christianity has been one that sees the belief in the devil by the faithful as an abandoning of monotheism. In the origin of Satan, Pagel reports the thoughts of Celius, a 2nd century doctor, historian, and philosopher, with these words. What makes the Christian message dangerous, Celius writes, is not that they believe in one God, but they deviate from monotheism by their blasphemous belief in the devil. For all the impious errors the Christians commit, Celius says, they show their greatest ignorance in making up a being opposed to God and calling him devil, or in the Hebrew language, Satan. And that would be a small s, not a capital S. It was the Christians who capitalized it. So Satan is merely literally translated accuser. That's all it is. All such ideas, Celius declares, is nothing but human inventions, sacrilegious even to repeat. It is blasphemy to say that the greatest God has an adversary who constrains his capacity to do good. Celius is outraged at the Christians who claim to worship one God, impiously divide the kingdom of God, creating a rebellion in it, as if there were opposing factions within the divine, including one that is hostile to God. Thank you. We get a clarity from a dude that lived back in the 2nd century and saying, this is bullshit, folks. If you're believing in evil and you worship evil, you're not quite right in your head, because your polytheistic, idolistic views are in direct contrast to what the rest of the world is proclaiming. You can't have imperfectness coming from perfectness. Celius brought that. That's his whole point. How can there be a rebellion against perfection? It's idiocy. So he went on to say, do we stand then on the words of Celius and look no further for the understanding that claims adding a Satan, small s, to one's faith is equal to adding another God? My. Now, if you want the rest of this, well, so I do want to bring this in here. So he brings in the foundation of what God are the words of the Creator. Now, isn't it interesting? Because now we're getting away from Yahweh, God. We're using now another synonym for Creator spoken to Moses as given in the Torah. And it says, unto thee it was showed that thou might know that Yahweh, he is God. There is none else beside him. So is Yahweh Elohim? Is Yahweh the Father God that Jesus speaks about? You can't have Father God and the Jewish God coexisting. One's lying. Hell of a time to be bringing this up at Christmas, isn't it? Yeah, well, it's time that the mirage starts going away. He goes on to say, know therefore this day, consider in your heart that the Lord, all capitalized, he is God in heaven above, upon the earth beneath, there is none else. Gets pretty deep in this stuff. So what's going on? Well, it's a conundrum, isn't it? Because the story falls apart very quickly. How can you have this so-called Armageddon coming where God is coming in to fight evil with righteousness? He's a schizophrenic then. He can't have an enemy that is restraining him. But that's just one point of view. Here's another one, Lucifer's fall in Isaiah 14. Again, he breaks out the fact that how Jerome inserted this himself, and it became Catholic and Christian canon. So I want to get back to where we left off in the Book of Kings. You know, I've done videos on this. This is Dr. Noah Samuel Kramer, one of my favorite books in my library. So we were talking yesterday with Robert on history. So we have a problem because you have these books, the Quran, the Bible, the Torah, which are supposed to be these holy books who are supposed to give the whole answer to everything. But the problem is, when those people were putting those books together, that spell, when they were creating this, they didn't know about the Sumerians. They may have seen reference to them, but they were a lost civilization that they never counted on any of these tablets ever seeing the light of day again. But they did. So it says, in his work, The Sumerians, Professor Samuel Noah Kramer, the Dean of Sumerian Studies, endorses its value as a research tool. He has suggested that the King's List, now if you remember, this King's List is goes back to antediluvian times. It's before Adam. And the problem is that I remember reading them, that they talked about these long reigns, 36,000 years, some were much longer than that. And you ask yourself, well, how can a king, how can a so-called human, but they weren't human, rule for that long? Where's the history of it? Says, if used with discrimination understanding, provides us with a historical framework of inestimable value. Mesopotamia, the cradle of civilization. Our story does not begin with the creation of the world. It starts with the arrival of intelligent life on Earth. The people we know historically as Proto-Sumerians. It is not known exactly when these ancestors of ours came here or why. It is surmised that they arrived here quite some time before the worldwide catastrophe called the deluge, excuse me. It was also long before the advent of modern man or Homo sapiens. It is generally agreed that these Proto-Sumerians were the origins of our Western civilization. It's the strange thing when you read the Sumerians and you look at the world governments today, we haven't advanced hardly at all. And that their beginnings were in the area called Mesopotamia, literally the land between the two rivers. The arrival of these gods is reported in the records that their descendants left behind the Sumerians, the Akkadians, and the Babylonians, their cuneiform tablets. The land known as Mesopotamia and the cradle of civilizations lies mostly between the Tigris and Euphrates River. Originating in the mountains of Armenia in the north, the two rivers move in a gradual converging course down a wide and grassy plain to the Persian Gulf. In early times, the area was made up of marsh and lagoons, much as it is today. The introduction of an intensive river canal system to irrigate and drain the plain gave rise to a dense population and to the establishment of a great culture. The lower part of Mesopotamia became a very fertile garden area, which the Sumerians referred to as Eden, or the abode of the righteous ones. It was the location of and gave its name to the biblical Garden of Eden. While the southern part of Mesopotamia came to be called Sumer, the area further up the plain at the near convergence of the two rivers was later called Akkad. The Akkadian city Bab-ulul became prominent and gave its name to the entire region Babylonian. After the deluge, the Sumerian cities were rebuilt and resettled on the alluvial plains of Mesopotamia. Since the oldest of these dates to about 3500 BCE, it was built on virgin soil. It is clear that they were not built upon the ruins of a former city. This is due to the fact that the waters of the Persian Gulf have risen some 150 feet since the deluge, inundating the former cities. This will be discussed later. What reason or purpose brought these alien beings, or the Anunnaki as they're known, as they called themselves, to this planet, we don't know. But from their legends and myths, we can deduce that it was probably for commercial purposes. According to King's List, they came here over 240,000 years ago. Kinship, the document describes the activities of the antediluvian Anunnaki as kingship descended from heaven, and was first established at Eridu, the Eric of the Bible. Here, two kings ruled for 64,800 years. Eridu was abandoned as the capital, and the kingship was moved to Bad-Taribia, where three kings reigned for 108,000 years. Then the kingship was moved to Larak, and one king ruled for 28,800 years. A fourth city to them became the capital of Sipar, where one king, In-Midurana, reigned for 21,000 years. This In-Midurana is important to our story, for as we shall see, he was the Enoch of the Old Testament. The kingship was transferred to Shuruppak, where one king ruled for 18,600 years. Thus, as the tablet surmised, 8 kings ruled over 5 cities for a total of 241,200 years. The King's List then states laconically, the flood swept over the land, putting an end to all commercial and other activities. Now, I want to stop on this flood. Doing research last night, if you take the story that this water covered the planet, it means in some places it had to have rained over 27,000 feet. That's a hell of a deluge. 27,000 feet at a minimum. Maybe it didn't cover the whole planet, but anyway, shall we continue? These huge numbers have been a puzzle to scholars. They are consistent throughout the king list and therefore are not erroneous. While a rational explanation has thus far escaped historians, most researchers feel there must be some logical answer to these fanciful numbers, since a parallel can be found in the enormous lifespan of the antediluvian patriarchs. It is entirely possible that these are not earth years as we know them. A divine year, or year of An, is often mentioned in the cuneiform tablets, and although not fully understood, is probably not equivalent to our normal earth year. A reflection of this is found in the Old Testament, Psalms 94, where one divine day is said to be the equivalent of 1,000 years. This is the same statement or something similar. It's also in the Quran. It was also not unusual for the ancients to compute time by other than normal earth years. For example, in the book of Jubilees, where a Jubilee year is equivalent to 50 regular years, that is 7-week years, a week year as 7 years, and 1 year added for atonement when all activities were supposed to cease. Furthermore, there is indication that the years of the king list have an underlying logic as to what that is found in their system of enumeration. Their numerical system was sexagesimal, I think I said that right, in character, 6-sided, I believe, but not strictly so. For they also made use of the factor of 10 as well as 6. Thus, the sequence 1, 10, 60, 360, 3600 takes on special meaning in their mythology. The number 60 held a special significance to the Sumerians, for in their system of numerical rank, it was the highest number and assigned to their chief god, An. If the duration of the various terms of kinship are presented graphically, it becomes obvious that this sexagesimal system must underline the fabulous numbers of the king list, called a shar by the Sumerians. The number 3600 appears to have a special meaning in this list. It can be seen with sight adjustment. The years of a reign of the Sumerian king are divisible by this number. It indicates that the term for the reign of a Sumerian antediluvial king was presumably a shar and was renewable every 3,600 years. This is the period of the orbit of the planet Nibiru. There we go. The ruling gods of the Sumerian pantheon. The Sumerians and Akkadians did not call their alien visitors lofty ones, from which the Semitic text Eliel or El of the Hebrew evolved. Prince Yut's name in the Mayan language, interesting, was is that Oxaphil? Oxaphil, I guess. The Western word God has, through usage, become to mean superior spiritual beings, far removed from man and incapable of defect or error. On the other hand, man is considered to be blemished, incomplete being, burdened with original sin, and destined to worship and pay homage to an unreachable God. The Sumerian gods were far from spiritual. They were real, live, physical beings capable of committing serious error and misjudgments. They could be called supermen if this term could be applied genetically to a Caesarean race, the reptiles. The Sumerian gods regarded man as a convenience and nothing more. He supplied their wants, kept their cities, and provided cannon fodder for their various military ventures. We still do this today. The gods could be cruel and unsympathetic. masters. They considered humans merely as unruly children, no more important than pets, to be governed ruthlessly and without sentiment. Isn't it odd that they say that Jesus looks at humans as children? I didn't say that, he did. I wonder if there's a correlation. These accusations may seem like hyperbole to the reader, but we shall see by subsequent events that this was indeed the case. The notion is hauntingly similar to the discussion of the archons of destiny by James Baines in his book, The Stellar Man. Wow. Although the term Anunnaki is used generically to apply to all Proto-Sumerians who came to this planet, it means literally the sons of On and their great god. In the Antediluvian period, a large group of these Anunnaki descended from the mothership to colonize Earth. According to the Imilish, the Babylonian myth of creation, 300 of these Anunnaki descended to Earth, while another 300 remained aboard the spaceship. These were called the Igagai, and presumably were the technicians of the spacecraft. So 300, 200, see the similarities? Senior god, On, the father of the Anunnaki. On and Anu and Akkadian meant he of the heavens, and his name was always written pictographically as a star. He was the great progenitor and the senior god who stood above all the other gods. His abode and seat of authority was in the heavens. The orbiting spaceship, or the Iru Sagana, literally the chief city of the heavens. And isn't it said in the book of Revelations that isn't this where it's the New Jerusalem will come down? It's a cube, measuring 1,500 miles each direction, a six-sided, wow. So we know that the books, the Bible, the Quran were written way, way, way after the Sumerian tablets. You can't tell me that that this correlation between something that was written 2,000 years before was even given thought to, that someone didn't borrow from someone else. Let's see. It says Anu is Greek Roman for Kronos, Saturn, the son of Alalu or Uranus, Celius. Stitchin writes about Anu and Antu staged a coup d'etat to depose the Alalu and the Lilitu. Greek mythology adds a curious footnote to this same story by stating that before usurping the throne from Uranus, Saturn first physically castrated his father. Holy crap! These are some sick mofos, man. They are indeed ruthless creatures, these Sasarians. And it should be noted that although planet Nibiru first arrived in our solar system around 500,000 Earth years ago, the Sumerian king list doesn't start until about 240,000 years ago. Thus, the intervening years before the ascension of Anu and the start of the king list can be deduced to equal the reign of Alalu. He descended to Earth only on special occasions, in times of crisis, or for ceremonial reasons. So apparently there were crises on planet Earth. We must have been a pain in their ass. I think we still are. When on Earth, he would stay in his temple, the In-Anna, or House of An, atop the ziggurat and Uruk, his sacred city. The word ziggurat comes from the Babylonian sakuru and means to be high or raised up. It signifies the top of a mountain or a stage tower, and such a tower provided an artificial platform on the flat Mesopotamian plain. Anu had 3 children. 2 sons, Inyiel and Enki, and a daughter, Nin-Hergazag. The division of authority between his 2 sons caused much dissension. And the senior god spent much of his time settling disputes between them as well as his grandchildren. I bet you can find correlation in every ancient book, sacred text dealing with this period of time. It says, refer to the vengeful birth of Lord, I think that is Heliospononicus, in which it was mentioned that Anu had to settle the dispute between the princess Inanna and the queen, I think that is Ereskaskau, over the ownership of the kidnapped infant Dumazai, who eventually became the public lover of Princess Inanna. Inyiel, the chief of the expedition to Earth. Although he was the younger son of On, Inyiel became the most powerful god of the Sumerian pantheon next to On. Literally, the Lord of Command. Doesn't that what Yahweh says? Isn't that what Baal says? Inyiel was commander of the expedition of the Anunnaki to Earth. He had many appellations which describe his authority. Number 1, Lord of heaven and earth. Doesn't this sound like Yahweh? Lord of all the lands, giver of the kingships, prince of heaven, chief of earth. Inyiel was actually the archetype of the god of the western lands of the Palestinians and the Syrians, the El of the Semites, and particularly the generic El or Elohim of the Bible. Could it be possible that Yahweh is in fact Inyiel? I still question how Abram would have not, I don't see how Abram, of course, I don't have the mind of a man that lived back then, but he knew the gods of Sumer. His family was deeply involved with Inanna. And I still marvel. I mean, I don't see it. So here we're saying, well, the author is saying the evidence is that Yahweh, so is this Father God? Is this the Father God Jesus Christ is talking about? Inyiel? Inyiel made sure that the decrees of the gods in council were carried out against mankind. He is often depicted with bow and arrow, symbolic of the powerful weapons at his disposal to enforce his authority. Inyiel disliked mankind and only tolerated humans as necessary to provide for the welfare of the gods. It was Inyiel, according to the Sumerian story of the deluge, who brought on the destruction of mankind because the noise of the boisterous humans interfered with his rest. Wow. Wonder what kind of noise is he thinking about? The temple dedicated him at Nippur was called the Dur-Anki, or Bond of Heaven and Earth, from where he directed the activities of mankind. This structure is described in part in the cuneiform tablets as some type of communication or control center. From his temple atop the Urkor at Nippur, it was said that he had eyes that could scan the land. The equipment used sounds very much like sort of radar or a scanning device, for the tablet state that he raises the beams that search the hearts of all the lands. Sounds like technology to me. Inyiel's rule was at times turbulent. One day, seeing a goddess naked and bathing by a stream on earth below, he became enamored of her and descended to seduce her. The pantheon was horrified at the escapades of Inyiel, since it apparently abrogated one of their basic conventions. I wonder what that was. Although he was the chief god, he was exiled from the spaceship and stripped of his powers. Only after marrying and making her his chief wife did the pantheon relent and let Inyiel return to resume his authority. I'm telling you, I can correlate this to the book of Psalms, Genesis, the whole bit. Eniel named her Niniel and gave her status equivalent to his own. The result of this episode was a son called Nanar, who became Eniel's favorite. Nanar was given rank in the pantheon second only to him and Enki, and honors and lands commensurated with his position. So they were giving each other lands. So if you're a prince and your father gives you a land, well, what does that say? You become a god. In Greek mythology, Eniel is the equivalent to Zeus, according to Stitchin, who also equated Prince Nanar with the Greek Hermes and the Egyptian Thoth. Because the parents of Hermes were Zeus and Maya, it logically follows that Niniel is the equivalent of Maya. Enki, the chief operations officer. Although he is Anne's firstborn, Enki was given lower rank than his younger brother Eniel, who had been born to An by another wife who was also his half-sister. Little freaky stuff, eh? By the laws of Sumerian inheritance, Eniel became heir to the throne. Lingering resentment over his disinheritance and the growing competition over who would control activities on earth brought Enki into direct conflict with his brother Eniel. And I can see I'm running out of time, but I'm going to try to get as much as in there because you see, folks, I think most of us can agree, regardless of what book you're referring to, there seems to have this commonality. I mean, I'm reading, Isaac and Esau. You have, it was Isaac and Ishmael. Then you had Jacob and Esau. The stories are all the same. It says Enki, or Lord of Earth, was also called Ea, or he whose house is on the water, a tactic reference to his water palace, or the Abzu, from where he carried out operations when he first arrived on Earth. Enki was all things to the expedition: chief engineer, chief scientist, chief of mining, and more importantly, the creator of mankind. Comment: here we once again find the oceanic reference to Enki, or Poseidon, god of the seas. As a master engineer, he supervised the turning of the marshlands of Lower Mesopotamia into a veritable paradise. He planned and supervised the construction of the canal system, the diking of the rivers, and the draining of the marshlands. In a self-laudatory poem, he boasts of making the marshlands a haven for birds and fishes, of directing the invention and the use of the plow and yoke, of stating animal husbandry, and bringing the construction arts to earth in order to raise cities. Enki had many epithets. He was the god of wisdom, the god of mining, the lord of flowing waters, and the lord of the sea and shipbuilding. And I can see I ran out of time. Well, anyway, I think we can, and then we think about, the title of today, Baphomet. I think they're all the same. I wonder if we ever wake up to that. And it sounds like we have an enemy who didn't like us at all, Eniel. He could be the perfect deceiver, couldn't he? Well, it's some heavy stuff, folks. That's all I got to say. Miss Space Cake, you got it right. Hence, maritime law. Exactly. When you go into a court in the United States, you're no longer on land. You are now under the jurisdiction of the Admiralty, the law of the high seas. So many things on this. I love this stuff. I tell you what, we're going to continue on. I mean, you just don't stop on this. I think we will collectively, probably many other channels and other platforms and other groups, but I believe we're closer than ever of discovering who really is behind the curtain, who's really pulling the strings here. Maybe that makes us a bigger threat. Mike says, in Anubis. Yeah. Oh, you arrived from the house number 29. That's interesting, Mike. I'll have to look into that. 333D3D says, I've been busy tearing down the veil of the world, but had to check in. Well, I'm speaking favor over that text. Go for it, buddy. That's all I got to say, unless you are a Baphomet. Didn't Ariel talk about the 300? Yes, and you read my mind, Blazing River, because next week we are going to revisit the alien interview. Seems like Ariel, whoever wrote that and whoever Ariel was, sounds to me like she may have been part of the Anunnaki. Or at least they were sharing intel somewhere. Well, Miss Space Cakes, thank you. Just putting it out there, just asking for a friend. It's exciting. That's all I got to say. Oh, man. And I can tell you, it's this kind of information that pisses the other guy off. The one, saying, hey, bow down to me, worship my ass, put your head up my ass, the whole bit. And the definition, the difference between an ass kisser and a brown noser, you know what that is? Depth perception. Anyway, I will leave it at that. And y'all have a great Saturday and Sunday. Don't make it your weekend. Make it your best one. And why does it have to be the end? Can it just be the week beginning? I mean, I don't know. So, Elderberry, it is a great story. I think somehow we're going to find our way. Someone laid that out. Thank you, Lauren. Much love to you, my dear. All right, everyone. See you back here on Monday, and we're going to spend next week with Ariel, and we'll mix some other stuff in, but I'd like to find, again, revisiting what Ariel had to say. Yeah, I bet we could find some correlation. I think we'll bring in the Book of Og as well, because that appears to be probably some legitimate history. Carol, you are more than welcome. Thank you all. I appreciate your time, and you make the journey. And thank you for hitting the like button as you're walking out. Feed the machine. You want to do it. Just hit that button.